A brief synopsis of Christian 21's information and revelations for the Great Spiritual Awakening following Alison Buzzluz Lightyear, aka C21, Further into the Rabbit Hole Part 2 by Leon George. Sinclair continued from Part 1. What springs to mind when you hear of Project Serpo, for instance? Project Serpo was apparently a human ET exchange program in the 1960s, where 20 U.S. military personnel and scientists went to live on a gray ET planet called Zeta Reticuli. Zeta Reticuli was popularized by the Betty and Barney Hill case. A couple from America were apparently abducted by Greys in the 1950s. These Greys told them all sorts of things and even showed Betty and Barney a star map. But researchers couldn't make sense of the star map. It didn't show any recognizable stars until a school teacher, many years later, looked at the star map and decided to delve a bit deeper. She realized that this gray ET star map was actually showing recognizable stars, but back to front. The star map was as if looking at Earth from a different location. She apparently used this knowledge to identify Zeta Reticuli as the gray ET homeworld that they came from. Anyway, the point is that the gray ET that we call the Zetas, or Reticulians, were in fact created by the Anunnaki. They don't come from their own planet because they never had a planet of their own to start with, and if they did, it wouldn't be in the sky. They were made in a lab. So Betty and Barney Hill are a psyop, and so is Project Serpo. Quite likely, in fact, that Betty and Barney Hill were an unsuspecting psyop. I mean, quite likely the parasites got two Greys and a UFO and told them, go abduct two people from a car, get them on the craft, tell them this story, and be nice. Because we need this story in 60 years' time to help back up our next lot of bullshit. Now extrapolate that explanation to all of the abduction cases that have ever been reported. The world, a highly advanced stage. The Orion Greys are different. The Mitrax, or Mitra, are one of this group. They use the portals of the stars that make up the constellation of Orion to travel between their worlds in Orion. They had several there, and here. They were created by the custodians as very competent allies, highly skilled geneticists, masters of phasing technology. For instance, a gray ET could remove your underpants while you were wearing them at work, and neither you nor anyone else at work would even know about it. It was these cunts who had the technology to destroy the spirit tree. There are, however, one or two species of gray ET that are highly positive and had nothing whatsoever to do with all this, but it was their DNA that was used to create the other 14 species of highly negative gray ET. Don't forget that the parasites can't sing and weave a new soul into existence. They don't much singing. Lol lol lol. Can you imagine an Omicron Prime singing in choir practice? So they make a replica soul to power their newly created species. It will be a hive-aligned replica soul created in fourth density to serve a purpose. These replica souls are like cheap Chinese knockoffs, like getting a soul off of Temu.com or Wish.com. They can easily create this type of situation. It's only supernatural to us here now because we have had a mind wipe and live in third density. This is all well known about normally back home. It's old news, very old news. NPC souls are created in exactly the same way with the same tech. And just like the parasites who created them, they will be unable to ascend into fifth plus density because they were created in fourth by fourth density parasites. So obviously NPCs can't ascend. It's the end of the road for NPCs. Don't be sad, even if they were nice NPCs, you will not miss them after. Only now might you feel pain and sorrow, contemplating their upcoming disappearance with apprehension, but that's because they are a part of your existence here in this life. But that's not how you will feel at the EMF, even if it's a close family member, because when you get your memories back at the same time as this happens, you will understand. And don't forget that you will be instantly reunited with your true cosmic family who you have known for millions or billions of years. Don't forget that compartmentalization of the military-industrial complex was only for the main workforce. If you sold your soul or killed children, you can know pretty much anything except details about Gateway 10 and what else is behind the ice wall. Don't forget that even 33rd degree Freemasons only know the world is flat. They think they are in possession of secret knowledge that no one else knew, and they were, until Christian 21 came along and blew the lid off everything. They think that all worlds are separated by space in the normal sense of what humans here assume space to be. Yet to a Freemason, these worlds exist as singular worlds with a firmament floating about in the vastness of space. They also think that Mars is somewhere in the sky very far, far away, when it's actually the closest planet to us here. Mars is physically joined to the hip of the outer ice wall of Realm 1. They didn't get told the truth either. They don't know about the physical plane of existence, or any of the other species that live here. They only knew of the parasites and demons, and they didn't know about the occupation or any other realities, just that the world is flat, and that God is Satan. Christian 21 brought with him the memory of reality to help reboot your software for the great spiritual awakening. The only people who know more about truth and reality than Christian right now are ET who live outside of this world. Christian has given all this info for free, over 2,000 videos, over 900,000 written words, and answered over 1,000 off-the-bat live questions on every conceivable subject, probably over 1,000 by now, and answered them all immediately without any deliberation. And all the answers make total sense. The proof is in the pudding, and the pudding is between your ears. You must extrapolate this information and hypothetically place yourself inside a situation where this type of incidents might occur. Try to observe it all from the outside if you can. Look in on it all, the mud floods, the free energy, Tartaria, the orphan trains, orphanages themselves, UPAs, out-of-place artifacts, architectural splendor of 200 years ago till now. Is that progress or resets? Surely progress would mean that we get better at technology and architecture, not worse. Mudflood soil liquefaction is the same tech used in the dustification of the World Trade Center atrocity, except the World Trade Center was human-created energy weapon tech, and reset liquefaction is ET tech. They were similar technology where two buildings that weighed 500 million tons each were somehow turned to particulate dust because an airplane hit them, and people believed that stupid story. It's like when they told us that all the World Trade Fairs burnt down, but they were made of glass and steel. So how do you set fire to glass and steel when there's hardly even any wood below? There are reports of molten glass running down the steel steps like rivers of lava. Very familiar energy weapon technology as the Twin Towers. Nothing new, very old news now. Take The Truman Show, The Wizard of Oz, Westworld, Gulliver's Travels, Alice in Wonderland, Never-Ending Story, and Jupiter Ascending. Mix them all together, and the result is what happened here. Gulliver's Travels was a documentary on Tartaria. Watch it again now with your new understandings, if you have them yet. The Pleiadian people are actually former Terran souls who escaped and were not trapped in here when this first happened roughly 100,000 years ago, Earth years, ballpark figure. The Pleiadian people are now highly advanced versions of their original Terran brothers and sisters, who are mostly stuck in here for the entire duration. Poor bastards, no wonder they can't wake up. But if one of these Terran was to wake up, or is in fact awake here now, when they ascend, they will evolve with upgrades to the speed of their now new Pleiadian counterparts very quickly. Your soul family, who are here in this loop with you now as your son or daughter, nephew, niece, brother, sister, maybe a colleague or close friend or in some cases merely passing acquaintances, these people here with you now in this life, have been with you in all of your loops here in third density, all of them. It's all our soul family outside could do for you. Keep the pod cluster together where possible, each loop, until the end, and in some cases for the 4,000 that lasted 178,000 years. Let that sink in. But when this is all over in the coming months and we are all back to normal again, what you went through in here with those incarnated soul fam members will strengthen that bond exponentially. Don't forget that nothing like this has ever happened before in the history of physicality. In the entire history of physical creation, nothing like this had happened before. It's like a new school set up for the first time, a brand new school, teaching health, homeostasis, well-being, truth, honesty, and manifestation. But kids from the rough estate round the corner came and fucked it all up in the first term, in the beginning stages of spirituality and well-being. Before the first graduates graduated, it all became soured with greed, lust, sloth, gluttony, pride, spite, hate, competition, and parasitic power struggles. What you have lived through in the last 30,000 plus years, for the majority of souls and 178,000 years in totality, has been a complete aberration of creation itself. It's important to understand that physical life itself is quite a new thing. Physicality is only about 5 billion years old. 5 billion years may sound like a long time, but time itself is also fake. So forget what you thought you knew about time, because time isn't real either. It's another illusion made possible by third density overlays, shortened daylight cycles, clocks and watches everywhere you look, schedules and appointments, all cement in your mind the idea of time as a linear issue. Linear time isn't real. Well, it is real here in third density. Time is elongated, stretched out like an elastic band being pulled apart between one's fingers. Whereas back home, you can understand time in the same way, with the rubber band analogy, except back home, it's not being stretched for you. You do the bending and stretching of time yourself, as and when required. You do it every day multiple times, and it comes as second nature, same as you would step out of the way without thinking if you saw a hazard in your path. It's the same with all your abilities back home. They all come as second nature. You have nothing to learn because you already know it all, it's just hidden from your mind's recall on purpose. But when the EMF comes, you will retrieve all these missing memories instantly, then spend the next few years remembering, as and when required. You will not be given a massive headache by having 178,000 years of memories returned to you instantly for you to be in total shock. No, you will get the memories back in one go, but you will only access them in singular fashion, otherwise it would be too overwhelming. No one is ever late back home, nothing takes longer than expected, and there are no accidents, not ever, not anywhere. The only time someone would expect to be injured, wounded, or harmed would have been in battles with the parasites over you in here. Literally, that's the only time would ever be in any danger. Back home, 1 second of time here in third density is elongated and stretched. Perceptions are regulated by reduced, augmented day and night cycles that are introduced. A clock turning into a pocket watch over the years, then a wristwatch, then a digital clock, then a mobile phone screen displaying the time and date, locking in your schedule to a fixed point in time. There are also many thousands of what we call overlays. Overlays are projected frequencies that augment your perception of matter, and they do this in many ways. Overlays are projected by many thousands of what you call in here stars. These stars, all of them, are not what you think they are. None of them are distant suns in the depth space, and none of them have anything to do with thermodynamics, nor does it involve any interaction between the strong and the weak nuclear forces. Neither is gravity a concern. Gravity is just a fictional excuse to explain why seawater can adhere to a sphere spinning in space at just under 1,000 miles per hour. There is no science to gravity. Gravity only exists as a thought form in one's mind. It has no place in reality. Electromagnetism is, however, an essential aspect to all suns in the technology used to make a sun, and also to keep it on its path in the sky. The overlays are used to obscure and hide the unmovable architecture that was already here before the parasites took full control. You may have seen the Emerald Palace discovered in the Antarctic ice. Seemingly, the environment around it melted to reveal its presence. But that's not you can see it. It was overlaid with the same technology we are discussing. The parasites can't move buildings like this. They can't even go near them because these buildings, same as all churches and cathedrals, are situated on major minor nodal lattice membrane network junction points, or nodes, and these nodes are naturally extremely high in energy emanation, which is amplified 100-fold by the construction of crystalline palaces temples. To be correct, they were not palaces for royalty. They were crystalline healing sanctuaries and manifestation centers for use by all beings in the realm. All realms have these temples. The fact that they are all placed where they are is no coincidence. They are required to be located exactly where they are, to gather and amplify the natural energetic fountain of energy that is already emanating from this geographic location. The edifice has now been constructed directly over the top on this location, after the area is density suppressed enough to phase out the crystalline temple that was once there before the density suppression happened. They then instruct Freemasons skilled in the tuning fork construction methods and techniques of the Old World, or those before them, the Druids, being the predecessors of the Freemasons. Don't forget that all this secret sect shit and priestly class system stuff stemmed from Egyptian Anunnaki royal families, as usual sold soul incestuous bloodline families to keep the bloodline pure. The people who built the wondrous temples, cities, cathedrals, churches, it was you who created these buildings with the technology that you used on a daily basis. They killed you all off with the floods of Atlantis and Lemuria and an immediate ice age just to make sure you were all dead, because then at the start everyone here was ninth density and very powerful. After the thaw, they got your mind-wiped soul and stuck it in a Neanderthal for a while to see how it would go on. They had several groups running simultaneously all over the planet to see what was best to proceed populating the planet with. Let's not forget that cavemen had a larger cranium than modern-day man does. That's highly irregular in itself. It means that they were more intelligent, by far, just not as good-looking as us. But they were all discontinued because they were too durable and robust, too intelligent, and had issues such as they were ugly, and the parasites wanted them beautiful so that they could rape them and their children. They needed to find the most suitable hominid to start with, one that looked attractive, wasn't too clever, wasn't too dumb, wasn't too fast and wasn't too slow, etc. They needed one that could speak and form tribes, then societies. Sounds like my game plan on dating websites. Lol, because no one speaks back home. It's all telepathic communication, long and short range, through the ether, even off-world comms. So getting all this nailed down in one adaptable, but not too clever vessel was a time-consuming venture. Most importantly, they needed one that could be all that, at the same time as producing the most amount of adrenochrome per milliliter of blood, and that turned out to be Homo sapiens. According to Freemasons, the Pleistocene is arguably the most important era for human development. They inform us of the rise of Homo erectus, Homo neanderthalensis, and eventually Homo sapiens all in this epoch. Also, apparently humans developed advanced stone tools, learned to control fire, and created the first known art, cave paintings and figurines. By the end of the Pleistocene, humans had spread to nearly every corner of the planet, including Australia and the Americas, is the official story, but that was likely back at the very start, when they needed to kill all the ninth density vessels off, as I said above, and it was a lot longer than 12,000 years ago. They could do that to a country if they wanted to, but a planet-wide freeze has not been done in 30,000 plus years, more like 80-90,000. Although it did get cold in 1816. It got down to 50 degrees Celsius. Back to manifestation briefly because I digressed somewhere back there. Remember, this realm 2 before the inversion. There were only 2 realms here back then. The fake ice wall, known of as Antarctica, created a third realm, Realm 3, which is the known lands, as we say. These temples were not constructed in the third density sense of building. They were woven and sung into existence in the higher light realms, and brought into physicality as complete and fully functioning structures. They would be grown in front of you in real time. It would take more than one being to create such a temple, unless that was a being of Celestia's or Raphael's ability, Christian's mother and father, the people orchestrating this whole takedown from the start. They could probably manifest an entire crystalline city on their own, but you get me. But where was I? Yes, the Emerald Palace. So, for a start, this Green Crystal Temple Palace, said to be in Antarctica, is actually situated at what you refer to here as the North Pole. Everything that they tell you anywhere in any media outlet as being in Antarctica, except ice research facilities, is actually situated at the North Pole. Why? Because that's where Black Rock, Metmeru, formerly the Spirit Tree, is located. And as we can understand, the Spirit Tree, that all realms have right at the very center of their world, is enormously powerful in positive and ultra-high frequency energy. That's just the same energy that the nodal points emanate, as discussed above, but even more powerful. So the parasites themselves can't go anywhere near these areas. That's why you see a plethora of gold statues dotted about near these newly discovered locations. They were not excavated, the ice did not melt, but the GAA White Hats switched off the overlays, or at least some of them, in these areas and gained full control of this system quite a few years ago now. They are letting you glimpse reality whilst leaving the element of doubt, because some of these images age from special effects accounts and people who use AI, and some of these images and videos have been AI manipulated for exactly the doubt reason, and also naturally by public fraudsters wanting likes and followers. But these are all real locations. They can't destroy these locations because they exist outside of the density of the parasites themselves, so the building's core harmonic is many octaves higher than parasitic weaponry can destroy, and also every single nodal point on the planet. There are hundreds of thousands of them, all part of the original and highly advanced spiritual technology that I was talking about above, with the gold, oil, and precious metals being required to stay in the ground. The parasites harvest the natural energy and sell it back to you, and they are greedy. They had to destroy the spirit tree because they had to, and because it's part of that natural and energetic technology, also the lattice membrane network, via the tree roots. In a higher density, those tree roots are crystalline, and so is the trunk and the leaves, but that will digress the fuck out of me, so I'll cover that later if you don't mind. But if they could even destroy the temples, they would lose out because, like any network, when you start taking nodes out, the system fails through reduced power or actual system structure failure. So they could only overlay these areas and cover them in deep, cold, frequency dampening ice. That's the only reason that it is cold in these areas. It's because the parasites don't want you going there because there are too many artifacts laying about, and the fact that they do not like going to these places themselves. The Emerald Palace from the Wizard of Oz movie is showing you in your absolute face, one of your previously most important buildings on the entire gateway, an emerald temple situated right on Hyperborea, in the middle of the physical plane of existence itself. The North Pole is dotted with these structures, so are many other places worldwide. The reason there are loads of gold statues, some small, some huge, some very strange looking, some evil looking all around them is because the parasites can't enter these places and can't destroy them either. They need to frequency suppress dampen the entire area, and they do that by extracting gold with technology similar to red mercury, more on that later. And Skynet 1 being a colloquial term used to describe the network of security system like stars in the night sky. Extracted gold for idol worship is obviously satanic. Idolatry, and the gold, such vast amounts, should be staying in the ground to serve its function. Having fields of gold idols all around the Emerald Temple and all other positive and sacred sites, with serious field dampening overlays projected onto it, covering it, overlaying its high frequencies with a power blanket of low, ultra-low frequencies, UF, removing its physicality from the view of a third density being, lowers it to just a third density observational simulation. These buildings, temples, palaces, fade from view yet still exist, vibrating at UHF ultra-high frequency, and therefore indestructible and invisible to any lower density being. Remember the movie Superman? Clark Kent, Eka Kal-El, would go to that cold place with the white crystalline ice palace, and he had a green kryptonite crystal which was the only thing that could harm him. This is merely reversed in-your-face revelation of truth in plain sight. Kryptonite represents an item that would harm the parasites, not Superman, who represents you. Kryptonite, we can assume, is representing radium. Radium is extremely high frequency, and therefore we can assume that it would harm the parasites a great deal and make them very sick indeed, maybe even kill them. Maybe that's why radium is no longer used to heat homes as it was in Tartarian times, to illuminate areas in darkness, such as Marie Curie wore around her neck on a pendant, ever glowing, never losing luminosity, a soft green luminescence. It allowed her to curl one out at night in her bedpan without shitting on the floor, one would assume. It would not surprise me at all if Marie Curie was a man. She probably hung the pendant of radium off her Prince Albert in her bell end so she could see where he was going late at night, naked in the galleries of Chateau Dom Perignon, whilst en route to the adrenochrome cellars in the basement. Everyone else in history seems to have been a free Martin tranny. And there are not 24 hours in a normal day back home, Back home a day is 3.9 Earth days, and it never gets dark, as in pitch black. Darkness itself is satanic, because it is dark, darky bad, and light a good, so dusk is as dark as it will ever get back home, and one day lasts almost 96 hours, not 24 hours. It's all an illusion, a technological illusion powered off of your own consciousness's understandings of reality, a reality presented to you through schooling and education. There was no truth to any of it, not a shred. This is why we talk about gay perceived knowledge holding people back. Perceived knowledge, religion, and finance are the three strings you must let go of to make a clean exit when the time comes. Otherwise, you will remain here with most others. And when I say most others, I don't mean 10 billion people. By that time, there will only be 520 million people here, max. The rest, 97% of the population, are not what you thought. They're NPCs, inserts, clones, and synthetics, although mostly NPCs. There are also hybrids here with you, serving food in burger joints, working in Tesco's supermarket, teaching your kids, and taking you to work in taxis. It's gonna blow people away when then see what happened and who was in their close proximity for so long. But let me not digress. Where was I? 520 million people left after the EMF, which will happen world is still locked down for the EBS, towards the end of the fake alien invasion, which will be mostly Project Bluebeam, advanced holographic projections. There will be no real UFOs in the sky during the fake alien invasion. It will all be holographic, except benevolent high-density holographic ET tech, and what you know of here as holographic, are very different things. We have all seen the new type of holographic projections used in the Far East in shopping centers and advertising. You may have seen the whale diving out of an indoor basketball court as a presentation. Well, our Soul Fam have much better tech than that 3D junk, and our benevolent tech is located in the valve at Mount Meru Black Rock Hyperborea, North Pole. It's situated there because from that central location, they can project out to the entire realm inside this ice wall. There will likely be some ET craft high up observing the display, but they will not land or interact in any way. They are not stupid. It's fucking double dangerous down here, and they are obviously well aware of this fact. Also, it's not for them to intervene in the human's trauma. For our soul fam is delighted, understatement, that this is all over at last. Don't forget that they remember you. It's you who forgot them. They have missed you, absolute fuck. Imagine not seeing your own children or family for 178,000 years. For them, it's way less than that. Existing outside this ice wall is nothing whatsoever like living inside it. Nothing at all. There will be no ET getting out of UFOs and walking about on the ground. It will all be a well-staged and fake holographic sky battle, only. It will look real though, trust me. Christian said that. Some people will think I lied, Leon. It will look so fucking real that some of them will be triggered and start remembering a reset and what happens. It's just that when the news starts showing groups of people getting abducted on TV by UFOs, 100 or so at a time, literally levitated off the ground and beamed up, they are gonna properly shit themselves in a very big way, mate. This is what they showed me when I was younger, Lee. I remember dreams and visions where I'm really high up, and I can see people running about in terror, down on the ground, packing the car with essentials and speeding off down the road. All of them, Lee, everyone, sprinting, running back and forth, but they didn't know where they were going. They had nowhere to run to, people in sheer terror just going any really quickly, which is what a reset was for, loosh, adrenochrome, and sacrifice, lots of it, every 1,000 years, for about 30,000 years and 8,000 years in earnest. So the people Christian saw in dreams and visions in his younger years were the people who will soon be running about on the EEBS and fake alien invasion. And when they are hit with the EMF, electromagnetic frequency, or flash, 97% of the population will instantly disappear. Let that sink in for a minute. If you were in a football stadium of 5,000 people when this happened, hypothetically speaking, you won't be, but for argument's sake, for every 100 people in that stadium, there would only be 3 people left after the EMF event. Just 3 people per 100 will remain here to heal. Let's say that you are in a block of flats looking down on a crowded plaza full of rioting people. A sky full of UFOs created by blue beam turns up, and these 5,000 plus people all shit themselves and disperse at high speed left, right, and center, into, over, and under anything they can find. This could go on for a couple of weeks, even likely less, but it's not going to be over the following day after it starts. But let's take the 5,000 people. When the EMF hits the planet, those 5,000 people in your hypothetical field of view will instantly be reduced to just 3% of the number previously present. Think about that for a moment, a bright white flash lasting 30 seconds. Immediately after, for most people who remain here, if you were still in a football stadium at the time, with 5,000 others, after 30-second flash, if you are a sleeper, i.e. a true soul, terminal ET soul, but never woke up and will therefore be in severe trauma, you will be one of the 3 people per 100 who is left in the stadium after the white flash dissipates 30 seconds later. You will still be in your current vessel. The only thing that changed was a fuckton of ET turned up and apparently had a war in the sky with another fuckton of other, apparently nice ET, then a bright white flash, lasting 30 seconds, and all of a sudden there are no ET in the sky, good or bad, and hardly any people left either. If you're a normal person, your poor head is still trying to process the red shoes from the EBS a week or 3 prior. For the last 2 weeks you have been sleeping rough in a metal shed because you are too terrified to go look for food, in case you are abducted by the space aliens that you saw on TV abducting people, and you think they are above you still in orbit somewhere, lol. Obviously, most people will not know that these apparent space aliens battling in the sky are merely advanced holograms running a software program and not actual ET in physical craft. The fact that you are apparently one of the only survivors of what can only be understood at that time by you as WW3 combined with what looked like alien sky battle eat salvation will perplex you even more. Your head will be spinning, you will be looking at the same scene as 30 seconds prior, but during the 30-second EMF, the realm itself will change. The GAA will strip layers of overlays in that brief time, and you will see a lot of bleed-through scaffolding and semi-pixelated buildings after the light dissipates. It will be devastation and ruin down here on the ground. You will assume that this pixelation is ET energy weapon damage. You will be happy to still be alive, for a short time, double perplexed at your own survival, but grateful you didn't die in the nuke attack. What else could that bright white light have possibly been if not the dreaded nuke? No nuke has ever been made, let alone used, neither would one ever be used. Nuclear weapons are hugely destructive and pollute areas for many thousands of years, making the location uninhabitable, even to parasites. And it took them many thousands of years to build up this asset. Their main means of survival was living off the earth humans' children and sweat at equity. Why would they let any despot lunatic human have access to such devastating weaponry? All the desert glasses found in remote deserts and mountains around the world were not caused by ancient nuclear weapons, no. It was caused by ancient energy weapons, weapons that change molecular and subatomic cohesion of material it touches into other matter. So a tree can be turned to stone, a person or a giant can also be turned to stone. It can fuse incompatible materials together, unifying them as one after being hit with these frequency devices. This technology is a cousin to cold fusion. You may have seen the fossilized hat and the other relic, a fossilized book, separate instances. There are many other fossilized items in private collections and in museum basements, but as most museums will openly admit, things that we can't explain, we can't display, and if we can't explain them, we don't display them. There are many UPAs or out-of-place artifacts, all coming to light these days and from all over the world, and again, obviously some of these are fake, but I know of many myself that I have known about and researched since I was young, way before the advent of modern computing, let alone AI editing software and Photoshop, lol. Indeed, one of the several reasons for the sinking of the Titanic was not just to kill the opposition to the Federal Reserve, being Benjamin Guggenheim, a mining magnate, John Jacob Astor, Third and Matey, who owned Macy's department store in New York, who I totally forget his name right now. I could Google it, but as the RA well know, we don't research anything because it's all bullshit anyway. So if I can't remember a name or a date, I'll explain it and give people the necessary info to find it, such as Matey, who was on the Titanic. Yes! Isidor Straus. He owned Macy's department store in New York. But anyway, that was just one reason that the Titanic went down. Firstly, it was the Olympic that was sacrificed, literally. The Titanic had a sister ship called the Olympic. There were several main structural and architectural differences between the two vessels, but they looked very similar. All the cabal did was to switch the nameplates on the two boats and send the Olympic off to its doom with the nameplate of the Titanic on its bow. Also on the Titanic was a special cargo, several artifacts. One was a crystal that emitted a vast amount of energy, taken from a much larger crystal that was recovered some time ago from a sunken city around the time that Atlantis fell. Also, there was a tuning fork used in the creation of what we today call Tartarian architecture. These edifices were not created with hammer and chisel. They were created with harmonic frequencies and sustained intent. All the ancient sites that we can't explain it in this way. One way is as described above, sung and woven into physical existence from the higher light realms, or the way that the Tartarian replicas were created. But with technology taking the place of the pineal gland action with the simulation either, ordained by the soul's desire, as would be the case if you were singing harmonic structures and concepts into intricate and complex mathematical designs manifesting the reality of that desire into the physical plane of existence. Being here, the way that the Tartarians used to create what you see today as churches and cathedrals is with technology such as these tuning forks, not your average tuning forks obviously, but highly advanced technology used to manipulate and sculpt using frequencies generated from intention, rather than hammers, augmenting the physical appearance of hard rock, such as andesite and granite, with sound and light, not sweat and graft. Stone turns to putty and is imprinted with a vibrational mode casting, if you will. Neither weight nor height pose an obstacle, as the stone is weightless and can be lifted to great heights without much effort or machinery. Edward Leedskalnin was a Latvian who emigrated to America in the early 20th century. He created, on his own, magnificent monument to a lost knowledge. I was interested in Ed Leedskalnin when I was in my teens. I thought it amazing that he could create this immense work single-handedly, and in such a short time, using only simple wooden poles and a few magnets, some wine bottles and copper wire. I studied the photos of the equipment that he left behind, coils of copper wire wrapped around glass wine bottles, and a series of 16x magnets that he had made, with each open end touching NSNS, aligned on a horizontal crank wheel in a circular pattern that he turned manually by hand. The wine bottles were also horizontal and were connected to each other, but spaced equally apart top to bottom, but horizontally. They also had a different amount of wire wrapped around each bottle. There were only 3 or 4 such bottles, each in a place where the magnetic crank would pass close to the copper windings in the glass wine bottles. The other end of the equipment is the mystery, an average size cigar box that no one ever saw the inside of. It sat atop a 3-pole wooden tripod he made from 3 trees, not large poles, I'd say about 20-25, maybe 30 feet tall. The cigar box sat at the top of these 3 poles. From this box suspended a few meters above the stone, a wire came out, protruding from the bottom of the box and down onto the rock itself. When Ed Leedskalnin turned the crank with the 16 magnets on, this contraption was only like a large cog-looking thing. Imagine a ship's wheel, but laying horizontal, not vertical. Considering Ed was doing this mostly at night and always solo, he managed to cut, dress, carve and move 100 tons of limestone, some weighing 9 tons each, as we see in the 9-ton gate, a single massive revolving block weighing 9 tons, that was so perfectly balanced that it could be pushed open easily by a person's finger. He cut the rock in a quarry himself on his own and paid a lorry to bring it to his dwelling. One account of a driver who was pretty amazed to find out that when he parked the lorry on Leedskalnin's property ready for unloading in the morning, the lorry driver went to leave, and Leedskalnin said, "Return in 2 hours." The lorry driver looked bemused, but went for some food around the corner. 2 hours later he returned, and the lorry was empty. Ed Leedskalnin had done it all on his own. Edward Leedskalnin was born in the 1880s in Latvia. I'd say, using Christian's info, Ed Leedskalnin was taught some old world knowledge handed down to him, in full or in part of the old technology that was removed from the face of this realm during the settling dust of the last reset that was ending in the West, in America about 1860-ish, and in the UK around 1900. As we will see in a moment, it was this exact type of genre of knowledge that was the main reason for World War I. Yes, I know. This deceit is endless, and we will try to cover as much as we can before lockdown. How far we get is anyone's guess, as it really does seem like an endless pit of lies. The First World War's dates were 1914 to 1918, and it was only in the late 1890s, 1900, that the last reset ended over here, and they started to repopulate the planet. So one of the main reasons for WW1 wasn't anything to do with Archduke Ferdinand. What a load of bollocks. World War I was to get rid of everyone over the age of 16. Basically, anyone who survived the reset and was not stuck in a lunatic asylum, found wandering about in the immediate aftermath of the reset that had only finished weeks or days before. Already, the repurposed lunatic asylums had started to fill up. These buildings were not created for this purpose, to house lunatics. They would have had another reason for their construction. As with all else, the parasites can see far into the future, and would likely have envisaged the lunatics needing looking after, so planned that future requirement into their designs now asylums. The lunatics were only homeless lunatics in the first place because they had witnessed at first hand, seen their family raped and flayed alive in the front garden by reptilians and other parasitic and alien species of child-killing ETs, demons incarnating sprees with the entire population simultaneously. So these hundreds of thousands of lunatics were now needing care. They were all tortured and experimented on, raped and killed after degrading humiliation and more loosh gathering, that's all. Imagine the loosh coming off of a 5,000-bed lunatic asylum. It would have been like a negative power station. So, straight after the last reset, the new NPC families were being schooled on what the reason was that they were getting on boats and trains and traveling to fully functioning cities with old and detailed infrastructure. Buildings that all seemed to match harmonic frequency generation and harvesting, built to the same exceptional standard that used electricity and rail cars powered by free energy. The new families repopulating these cities, they come into the picture as the people from the previous reset's denizens, just before it happened. They show you this in movies. Think about the film 2012. The people needed to restart civilization after a catastrophe are of a certain age, certain level of skill, or intelligence. These people are pre-warned of the impending catastrophe, always a reset, never accidental, and they travel elsewhere to safety so that they can repopulate the planet after the destruction. In the movie 2012, it's on arcs that the hopefuls escaped on. Normally, the people required to reskill the new population's orphans in these now empty and uninhabited cities are just taken to temporary accommodation in another country, set aside to not be reset, set aside for exactly this purpose of storing the new grown-ups in society saved from the destruction, to educate and teach these parentless cloned children how to exist in society. These people, normally NPCs themselves, will ask few questions. They will be happy to be spared whatever it was that caused the need for them to be saved from this obvious destruction. They will not bite the hand that feeds them. The people who saved them are Freemasons with prior knowledge, tasked with finding the best and healthiest, most intelligent, or skillful of those people's citizens, and getting them to safety before the reset, so that these people can re-educate the new narrative to all the parentless children. The First World War was timed and orchestrated for several reasons, but one of the main reasons was to kill off the people early teens to mid-50s. This group was a threat. Most of the older generation perished already in the reset, same as this time. Old people will have heart attacks at the revelations, whereas previously, old people died of shock of the reset's open depravity. It was the people killed in WW1, for instance. These people were the last children taught the true shape of the earth in schools. Before curriculums and regulated schooling, teacher discretion was a gray area. Most adults in the 1860s knew the earth was flat, and taught this truth to their children at home, who in turn were the teachers of the children who went on to fight in WW1. Silling is of information many years or decades before that deletion of history was publicly required by the parasites to pull a new move on the populations. It was all very cleverly thought out indeed. WB1 was used to get rid of 15 to 22 million people who may have old world knowledge, expertise, and herbal experience. Most people did back then. Big Pharma was on the parasite's horizon, so they couldn't have any natural remedies that worked really well with no side effects, when the idea was to make this resets populations sick and reliant on Big Pharma meds. WA1 deaths total. Deaths, around 15 to 22 million. Military deaths, approximately 9 to 11 million. Civilian deaths, around 6 to 13 million, primarily from hunger, disease, and genocide. This ensured that all well-developed countries at that time were involved in the war, which primarily were the allies of France, Britain, Russia, Italy, Japan, US, etc., plus their empire's dominions like Canada, Australia, and India, against the central powers of Germany, Austria-Hungary, the Ottoman Empire, and Bulgaria. The conflict began in 1914 and expanded to involve nations across Europe, the Middle East, and beyond, with major fronts in Western Europe, the trenches, Eastern Europe, and the Middle East. This world war utilized all the men of fighting age to give their lives to help erase any vestiges of the old world memory forever, as all the new orphans being distributed over the planet's surface were mostly clones, because they had just harvested the whole planet for adrenochrome, and adrenochrome comes from children and was the parasite's main product of desire. They wait eagerly 1,000 years before each harvest like this, and it is their biggest calendar date of each millennia. So the kids on orphan trains were the newly grown crop, grown in facilities underground in DUMBS. You see, it wasn't just the parents who were killed, tortured, raped, and eaten to death. They ate all the kids too. Those children in the orphan photos are mostly clones. The orphans were created without parents, created in labs in the DUMBS. The entire population on the surface, including all children, are annihilated after being used for sex, food, and satanic fun. That's what a reset is. Stem cells of all the children are taken before sacrifice, and used to repopulate the realm after the dust settles on the reset that just happened, after about 3 to 5 years. They have removed all the free energy tech from the visible landscape, hidden all the things they never ever wanted you to see, read, or hear, such as the bells. But I'll come to that after, as that will digress me even further. By the way, lunatics were not an unfortunate consequence of the reset. They were an essential and pre-planned aspect. Think about it, it's easy to walk this further in our mind by its obvious and clear necessitation, knowing what Christian has told us about the devious and relentless nature of these parasites and their hatred for humanity. Think about it. They just killed everyone in a reset, raped, tortured, sacrificed, and ate all the children and the adults. All the old people had a heart attack while watching it all, but like I said above, the parasites took stem cells from every single child before killing it to clone the next generation crop. But these are the seedlings, not ready for harvest. They need to grow into adults yet, to raise the future generations until the next reset in 1,000 years' time, another rise and fall of civilizations. So whatever the lunatic asylums were before, they repurposed easily and quickly into 5,000-bed mental homes, secure prisons, old school FEMA camps, in the same way that Walmart in America is an anagram of martial law. And all have a DUMB below them of some size where containment, organ harvesting, torture, and execution would be a daily occurrence en masse. We can assume that these now lunatic asylums were built by the people of the time, for a completely different reason other than to house the mentally infirm, just as Walmart's original purpose and locations was not to sell bog roll and potato chips. It was what they were needed for in the future which ignited the brand and the outlet locations. So the reason that they needed the lunatics in the first place is obvious when you let your mind go there. This is what I mean about the proof is in the pudding, and the pudding is between your ears. Understanding Christian 21's information makes it easy to see through the bullshit and decode your own mysteries in real time in your own mind. And this is another example. They needed the lunatics, who were shell-shocked and catatonic victims of the reset that would have just ended, and they needed these people in the asylums because they had just killed literally everyone else. And it's gonna take 20 to 30 years before there are all that many more children or adults that you can take for sacrifice in any meaningful numbers for food, sex magic, and so on. But they gotta take care of the demons first, because a top-tier sold soul is hosted by a demon in, a sold soul has no power without a demon. What demons eat? Loosh. What are asylums? 5,000 plus person loosh batteries. Storage for the only available loosh on the planet, save torturing a few cattle here and there. If the demons don't get loosh, rain stops play for the parasites, and their whole system fails because benevolent soul family ET could see this weakness and step in. They had to plan the entire inversion right back at the start, and lunatic asylums were an essential piece of the mechanism of the previous resets beginning. Like when I used to grow weed, I'd need enough to sell, or more importantly, I'd need enough to last me until my next crop in 4 months' time. So, where was I? Edward Leedskalnin famously stated he had discovered the secrets of the pyramids and understood the laws of weight and leverage. His birth year suggests he was a reset baby, likely a true Terran human, or more likely an ET soul. He was partly correct, except the pyramids were not created here with this method, as we said before. They were created in the higher light realms as harmonic tonal frequency architecture, solidified here in third density as overlaid stone. Edward Leedskalnin's skill set was based on technology of the old world, technology you were not to have access to during this reset, as you didn't need beautiful architecture, resplendent public boulevards, wide lagoons, and public bathing areas for the eighth and final reset. Don't be silly. If you were seeing Tartarian beauty everywhere you went, going from that splendor on a daily basis, you would be very abruptly shocked at the austerity and battleship gray, drab colors of your new 15-minute city FEMA camp lifestyle. So they started taking these buildings out all over the world in a gradual but serious attempt to delete most of Tartaria from the minds of the majority. And majority is the key word here. Don't forget, it's only the NPC majority that is required to gain majority status swaying public acceptance sentiment. 97% NPC is an easy no-brainer majority if you made sure that 97% and 7% will in fact do whatever is best for them. They have been manufactured and programmed to believe and recite what is told to them by those who they personally perceive to be in control of, or administrators of the accepted and societally acknowledged public opinion and narrative at national and international herd level. So we can envisage this in people putting a mask on because a security guard said to, or a teacher informing parents of new measures at the local school, or a thick-as-fuck nurse advising people to get the shot, flatten lives to save the curve. You're all in this together. There is no safety for them outside of the herd's protective encampment. The perimeters of the mind camp. Mind camp! Lol. Sounds like a book that Adolf Hitler wrote. Defined by social conformity like cerebral boundaries, where the mind of a non-player character may not roam freely, not without potential castigation, and self-planted intrusive thoughts of herd betrayal and the potential ostracization that it could lead to, not being allowed ground grandmouse anymore at Christmas because you believe in space aliens and deep state genocidal governments. Or, I suppose we'll have to get vaccinated or we can't go on the family holiday next year. Or, everyone at work is going to the Christmas bash. If I don't have the jab, I'll be the only unvaccinated person there and I will feel different. These are all variations of this mentality, MK Ultra societal programming at its finest, on malleable subjects fed nutrientless foods that are poisoned, breathing air that is poisoned, drinking water that is poisoned, thinking poisonous thoughts and carrying out poisonous deeds just to survive. They are pickled in toxicity at every angle, mentally, physically, and emotionally. Most people are socially inept, having the social and interpersonal skills of a Satsuma. They are scared to death of committing to a conversation on anything other than two things: the standard herd-accepted narrative or their chosen topic work, usually, or sport. They may have an interest in mechanics and cars, fishing, whatever, but they do not carry on a conversation outside of those limitations, generally speaking. However, there are always exceptions to the rule. Because they don't have any depth in their words, there is no courage in their convictions. It's all mainstream narrative nonsense because they have never thought about anything at a deep level before. They are not self-aware and have no internal monologue. They are more like the collective, thinking in uniform, scripted, non-cognitive chains of non-predetermined non-coherence than self-aware thinking men and women. They are thinking what the next person thinks just because it saves them having to risk thinking and accidentally getting it wrong. That's what most of this boils down to: ego and pride. People's ego and pride are huge barriers. They assume that everyone has ego and pride, and they react accordingly at first encounter for the most part, guarded as fuck, like hermit crabs. A timid and frightened interior, with a false and borrowed exterior shell that they saw and took to repurpose as their own. People are scared to commit to an opinion because they rightly suspect that their own opinion is blatantly flawed. Think what you say and say what you think. Step outside of normality and glimpse reality before reality breaks into your mind uninvited. In computer games, you see the same NPC in the same place every time you play that same level. In the next level, the same NPC is there in the game, but he's got a different role. She may be serving behind a bar in the mission you are trying to complete, or driving a car that you just dragged her out of on GTA, Grand Theft Auto. But that NPC does not follow you about in the game. It's more like they are static, or in a defined area where they may not leave. That's how it is in third density. An NPC has thought avenues that are already laid out for them, and they realize these avenues in boundaries of thought in daily life by interacting with or tuning into NPC programming outlets such as TVs and radios, or reading books and magazines, or with peers and colleagues at work, school, or abroad, or surfing net truth channels, science outlets, and NASA websites, etc. Slogans bolster the programmed and fake viewpoint that NPCs flippantly blurt out, as if they actually know something of value to share with the group. It's laughable. I don't mean that big-headed, because the only reason I am aware of any of this is because I was humble enough to actually listen without refutation, to think without judgment. It took me 4 years to work out that the Earth is actually flat. I wasn't having any of it. I thought a flat Earth was fucking ridiculous, only because I had no idea how deep the lies and deceit actually went, or why. I never realized the width or depth until I met Christian and followed Alice Sibley, aka Buzz Lightyear, lol, down the rabbit hole with a lantern map and a packet of Fox's Melts chocolate biscuits. But I had worked out the shape of the Earth a year before I met Christian. But that's all I knew of reality, and I was humble enough to learn, based on Christian's clear knowledge base of previously unheard intel. He had the answers. I had the questions. That was the defining moment for me. I only had questions after studying this for 43 plus years, whereas Christian only had answers, no questions. He'd answered all the main ones by the time he was 25 years ago. I saw that for what it was immediately, long before we physically met. Sorry, I digressed again. I was talking about architecture. That's why architecture is so drab these days, like all modern architects are working from the same ugly plan. Whereas in Tartarian times, they were all working from the same beautiful plan. And that is exactly what's happening. Architects know what councils want to see built because council heads are all 33rd degree Freemasons singing from the same parasitic hymn sheet that worldwide Freemasonry is. They are one people. Freemasons are void of color, creed, or religion, bound in secrecy by Satanism and child sacrifice. It's not rocket science, eh? And the councils get orders from the ministers in Parliament, who are all child-killing Freemasons as well. Orders and new policy is sent down the cesspit of command from the top down. Architects have meetings with town planners and contractors. The town planners are under 33rd degree Freemason oversight. They know what is expected to get approval in design parameters. Large construction companies are also owned, controlled, or guided by the deep state cabal. The really big construction companies are mostly Freemasons as well. So if you are a large building contractor, building homes and offices all over the country, and you get a massive job with a specification sheet and the plans, you are not arguing about the beauty and aesthetic appeal of the finished edifice with the people paying you to carry out the build. They decided already what they wanted. You're not going to argue about how square it all looks and utterly depressing. You're not going to point out that Romanesque turrets in white marble would look nicer than concrete. You just want to be paid lots of money and the opportunity to do a good job to get the next large contract for 20,000 homes in Essex over the next 10 years. They are working to a plan that is designed to gradually reduce your expectations of not just architecture, but the fabric of life itself. What life is all about as a society in general. Things were taken away from you, downgraded and subdued, ready for the eighth reset. The sky event will end at the start of the EMF, so there will be no blue beam UFOs in the air at this time, and none landed. You are running on pure adrenaline, just like you see in disaster movies, no sleep, and sheer terror. There will be other groups of people forming collectives, trying to work out what actually happened and why they alone are still alive. They will bond in groups and search for food together, more permanent shelter, and firewood, etc. Don't worry, at this time there will be no marauding gangs robbing people and raping women. That's would have happened. You got spared that. Soulfam wouldn't allow that to happen anyway, but after the event that just happened, people will be in severe shock, trembling, catatonic in many cases. But be very quiet. No animals will be here, no birds chirping, no background noise whatsoever. All animals and children automatically ascend, as they have done nothing wrong, and their heads are not filled with pointless information that is affecting their judgments. Some children from loving families who are not NPC will stay. Don't forget that many children here are obviously also NPCs, but it's almost impossible to tell in children because they have no firm opinions that give NPC status away, as they are still learning the basics, and most likely they, like I, disagreed with most of it anyway. They also have no deep-seated pride to cling on to, no particular or defined understanding of finance and monetary value, and likely they are not too religious yet either, especially not these days in 2026. At this point in time, after the EMF, people who were devoutly religious will mostly have killed themselves, or had heart attacks, or they are no longer religious whatsoever. The religious NPCs will obviously have evaporated into the aether as pixelation dust. They even show you this in movies, because the EBS will make it clear in no uncertain terms by its very nature and content that a God clearly does not exist. Why Allah, Jesus, Muhammad, God, or whatever religious deity they supported? How could that loving entity allow billions of children to be sacrificed for 30,000 years? The EBS will not inform people that, hi everyone, God was fake. Just thought we'd let you all know. No, the unequivocal nature of the EBS, its deliberate intent, detailing the people involved, which was basically everyone since before recorded history that has ever been in an incapacity. TV, film, radio, advertising, sport, government, in travel, media, tech, science, and judiciary, education, geography, literature, agriculture, politics, food, everything, every single person since before the Dark Ages. Continued in Part 3.